Charles-Leiningen Versus the Ants. Carl Stephenson. Unless they alter their course, and there's no reason they should, they'll reach your plantation in 2 days at the latest. Leiningen sucked calmly at a cigar about the size of a corncob and, for a few seconds, gazed without answering at the worried district commissioner. Then he took the cigar from his lips and leaned slightly forward. With his bristling gray hair, bulky nose, and intelligent eyes, he had the look of an aging and shabby eagle. "Decent of you," he murmured, "paddling all this way just to give me the tip. But you're pulling my leg, of course, when you say I must run. Why, even a herd of dinosaurs couldn't drive me from this plantation of mine." The Brazilian official threw up lean and lanky arms and clawed the air in frustration. "Leiningen!" he shouted. "You're insane! They're not creatures you can fight. They're an act of God. 10 miles long, 2 miles wide. Ants, nothing but ants. And every single one of them a fiend from hell. Before you can spit 3 times, they'll eat a full-grown buffalo to the bones. I tell you, if you don't clear out at once, there'll be nothing left of you but a skeleton picked as clean as your own plantation." Leiningen grinned. "Act of God, my eye. I'm not going to run for it just because an army of ants is on the way. And don't think I'm the kind of fathead who tries to fend off lightning with his fists either. I use my intelligence, old man. I know what my brain is for. When I began this farm and plantation 3 years ago, I took into account all that could conceivably happen to it. And now I'm ready for anything and everything, including your ants." The Brazilian rose heavily to his feet. "I've done my best," he gasped. "Your obstinacy endangers not only yourself, but the lives of your 400 workers. You don't know these ants." Leiningen accompanied him down to the river where the government launch was moored. The vessel cast off. As it moved downstream, the official neared the rail and began waving his arms frantically. Long after the launch had disappeared round the bend, Leiningen thought he could still hear that imploring voice. "You don't know them, I tell you! You don't know them!" But the reported enemy was by no means unfamiliar to the planter. Before he started work on his settlement, he had lived a long time in this country. He had seen for himself the fearful damage sometimes wrought by these ravenous insects in their campaigns for food. But since then, he had planned his own measures of defense. These, he was convinced, were in every way adequate to withstand the approaching peril. Moreover, during his 3 years as a planter, Leiningen had met and defeated drought, disease, and all other acts of God which had come against him. Unlike his fellow settlers in the distant district, who had made little or no resistance. This success he attributed to the observance of his lifelong motto: "The human brain needs only to become fully aware of its powers to conquer even the elements." Dull people fell senselessly and needlessly into despair. Even bright enough people lost their heads and ran to stone walls when circumstances suddenly altered or accelerated. The lazy drifted with the currents until they were caught in whirlpools and dragged under. But such disasters, Leiningen claimed, merely strengthened his argument that intelligence, properly directed, always makes man the master of his fate. Yes, Leiningen had always known how to grapple with life. Even here in this Brazilian wilderness, his brain had triumphed over every difficulty and danger it had so far encountered. First, he had vanquished primal forces by cunning and organization. Yeesh. Next, he had enlisted the resources of modern science to increase miraculously the yield of his plantation. And now he was sure he would prove more than a match for the irresistible ants. That same evening, however, Leiningen assembled his workers. He had no intention of waiting till the news reached their ears from other sources. Most of them had been born in the district. The cry, "The ants are coming!" was to them a signal for instant panic-stricken flight, a spring for life itself. But his workers had learned to trust Leiningen's wisdom, and they heard his news calmly. They waited, unafraid, alert, as if for the beginning of a new game or hunt which he had just described to them. The ants were indeed mighty, but the brain of man was mightier. Let them come! They came at noon, the second day. Their approach was announced by the wild unrest of the horses, scarcely controllable now either by in stall or under rider, scenting the coming horror. It was announced by a stampede of animals, timid and savage, hurtling past each other. Jaguars and pumas flashed by the nimble stags of the pampas. Bulky tapirs, no longer hunters, themselves hunted, outpaced fleet antelope. Maddened herds of cattle, heads lowered, nostrils snorting, rushed through tribes of loping monkeys, chattering in crazed terror. Then followed the creeping and springing inhabitants of bush and field, big and little rodents, snakes, and lizards. Pell-mell, the rabble swarmed down the hill to the plantation. They scattered right and left before the barrier of the water-filled ditch, then sped onwards to the river. There, again hindered, they fled along its bank, out of sight. This water-filled ditch was one of the defense measures which Leiningen had prepared against the ants. It encompassed 3 sides of the plantation like a huge horseshoe. 12 feet across, but not very deep. When dry, it was hardly an obstacle to either man or beast. But the ends of the horseshoe ran into the river, which formed the northern boundary and 4th side of the plantation. And at the end, near the house and outbuildings in the middle of the plantation, Leiningen had constructed a dam. By means of the dam, water from the river could be diverted into the ditch. So now, by opening the dam, he was able to fling an imposing wall of water, a huge rectangle with the river at its base, completely around the plantation, like the moat encircling a medieval city. Unless the ants were clever enough to build rafts, they had no hope of reaching the plantation, Leiningen concluded. The 12-foot water ditch seemed to afford all the security needed. But while awaiting the arrival of the ants, Leiningen made a further improvement. The western section of the ditch ran along the edge of a forest, and the branches of some great trees reached over the water. Leiningen now had them chopped off so that the ants could not descend from them within the moat.